We're honoured and excited to have Esther here, all the way from Holland. Esther Ouwehand is an elected member of the Dutch Parliament for Party for the Animals and is here in the UN as part of a regular exchange that happens between...
I will be visiting the UN from Monday to Friday. I wanted to do, obviously, pushing the animal rights agenda at the UN because I'm not under the impression that anyone at the UN is fighting for animal rights. And since I'm here, I decided to take some time to hook up with the Humane Party and animal rights activists to do some animal welfare promotion in New York City because you guys need some.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. And just to comment, if everybody can switch their cell phones off, we don't have to film multiple ringers going off. Okay, great. So I'll let you do your presentation and then we'll move into some questions and then...
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tracy. Well, I'm guessing we're doing a bit of an informal thing this afternoon. I had a lecture yesterday at the NYU, so you're going to get a second-hand lecture today, but I thought I'd show you some slides about our party and what we do, and Tracy will be my assistant. So I'll just nod a bit to you when I want the next slide. And there will be room for Q&A.
Great.
Yeah. So, politics for animal rights, what are they about? Well, obviously you as part of the animal welfare movement, as NGOs, you probably know the feeling of being so frustrated, trying to get your agenda through to the politicians and making promises and they not living up to it. So we, as the animal welfare movement in the Netherlands, experience the same. And there would be parties that would make some pledges for animal welfare, but they would never live up to it. So with that in mind, we were kind of inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, who said the greatness of a nation can be measured by the way its animals are treated. I know a guy or two who could be reminded of this wisdom. And he also said, because obviously founding a party for animals is going to be laughed at, Gandhi said, well, first they ignore you whenever you stick up for something, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. So when we decided to found a party for the animals in 2002, this is obviously what happened. People were like, oh really, are we going to get cats and dogs in parliament? And people are never going to vote for that. But we kept Mahatma Gandhi in mind, who knew this is the fate of every social justice movement ever in the history of mankind. So we decided, because we were sick and tired of being outside of parliament, begging other politicians to do something for the animals, to step up for the animals, to get in ourselves. So this was our first party logo. We wanted to get in. The blue seats you see over there are the seats in the House of Representatives, so everybody knew straight away it's time for a political voice for the animals. And we decided on this logo because we wanted to make sure that people understood that speaking up for animals and contributing to animal welfare organizations, it's all very important, but in the end, the decisions about the welfare and the rights of animals are being made in politics, and someone needs to be the voice for the animals. So we decided to do that. And this was the campaign poster that brought us the election win. This was in 2006, just 4 years after our party was founded. Again, the seats of the parliament that we had a little joke with, we put a kitten on it, who was not going to behave herself. So this was the message to the voters in 2006, and on the 22nd of November 2006, for the first time ever in the history of the world, 2 people for animal rights were elected into the House of Representatives in the Netherlands. We were all over the world in the news because people were like, what is happening now? Politics for animals. We shouldn't get any crazier than this. So this was our victory night. We were very happy, obviously. And after the victory, this was the site that people had to get used to. Two women, it's not a coincidence, I guess, who were there with one strong mission, speaking up for animals and speaking up for animal lives, and by doing so, creating a better world for us all. Because we strongly believe in the one struggle, one fight. It's about emancipation, women's rights, civil rights, and I remember the comedian Dick Gregory, which might be appropriate because we're in a comedy house right now, who said, because I am a civil rights activist, I am an animal rights activist. It's one single goal. And I was in Bristol last summer, and I was at this punk cafe. You know these cafes where the toilets would have stickers all over the place. And I found this one because a lot of time people come up to you and say, wow, but why are you sticking up for animals? Because we need to stick up for women's rights, we need to stick up for for children's rights. And I thought it was a very good catchphrase. Equal rights for others does not mean less rights for you. It's not pie, people. So we stick to it, and we were also inspired by,
Sorry.
it's okay, and Tracy's gotta speak to her. We were also inspired, obviously, that sticking up for animals is a mission worthwhile in itself, but also it means so much for the way we live. Also remembering Gandhi, the greatness of a nation can be measured by the way its animals are treated. It says so much about who we are as human and the way we treat our environment and other groups that might need our protection. So we were not the first one to come up with this idea. Many people went before us. Tolstoy said, as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields, and there might be a truth there. And another one is claimed to be from Pythagoras, the guy we all know from mathematics. He has some statements about mathematics that every kid got taught in school. But he also said, as long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower living beings, he will never know health or peace. Wow, if that's true, then we are in a very, very bad place, because we are completely ruthless to other living beings at this time. So when we got elected, we put our mission to the test right away. What you see here is the first cabinet that was formed after we were elected, and they are presented with, in the middle, our head of state, that was at that time the Queen, and one of the ministers. We saw this picture and we were like, are you kidding me? What is that around your neck? And we zoomed in, and indeed it was a fur neck thing from a fox. Well, the breeding of foxes for fur is banned in the Netherlands. What we decided to do is immediately do a spoof on that. So we made a little fox just from cotton to put attention to the morals and the values that the cabinet was talking about. It was the minister was from a party that's called the Christian Democrats, and they were full of values and sticking to your values. And we were like, okay, if you're all about values, how come you're wearing a product around your neck for which we had decided in the Netherlands that it's immoral to produce? You are not allowed to raise foxes, to kill them for fur. So this is our way of doing politics. We are there and we are willing and more than eager to point out the faults in the thinking, the conservative thinking of traditional parties. So this is how we do it. Another major first blow we took is, we probably all know the film An Inconvenient Truth from Al Gore, who made a film about all the dangers involving climate change, and he paid attention in his film to all the factors that are causing climate change, the main factors. You can see here, obviously, a polluting industry. But he forgot, conveniently, that the animal agriculture industry is the biggest contributor to climate change. It's even more than transportation all over the world together. So more than all the cars and all the trucks and all the trains and all the airplanes and the boats, more than that is animal agriculture. So what we did after this film came out, we made our own film called We Need the Truth, in which we paid attention, and the whole film is about the impacts of livestock farming on climate change. And obviously that was the first time in the Netherlands that, and maybe worldwide, I don't know, that there was this kind of agenda setting, this kind of knowledge of the impact of animal agriculture industry in the public and political debate. Obviously there were studies that showed the impact, but nobody talked about it, not even the environmental movement. And by doing our film, we put the issue on the agenda and into the awareness of like green parties and other parties who care about the climate. Excuse me. In order to recognize that if you want to protect the climate, you cannot look away from animal agricultural industries. So obviously we got a lot of pushback. This was the Minister of Agriculture at the time, and she went flat out. She told everybody in the press that we were flat out lying, that the facts that we found could not be true. She ordered the university, the agricultural university in the Netherlands, to calculate if we made mistakes, and she had to admit after 6 months that all the facts were true. And by the way, she also, that's good for the next slide, she also made a glossy about herself, and for the first time in the history of the Netherlands, a minister almost got impeached for spending taxpayers' money to do a glossy on herself. And obviously we weren't too happy about the whip she was carrying there as the minister who was responsible for animal welfare. So that's a sideline. So what we do is combine the struggle for animal rights with the consequences it has on nature, on human beings. So we make the connection between global warming in the animal agricultural industry, but also the deforestation, the loss of biodiversity. The animal agriculture industry is also the main cause of the loss of biodiversity in the world, and also of the pollution of the oceans, because the manure that all these farmed animals produce are a big source of pollution for the ocean. And also climate change. People have in their minds that rainforests are crucial to protect the earth from climate change, and they are. But what most people don't know is that the oceans absorb the carbon dioxide, and as a result of that, they acidify. When the ocean acidifies, all your coral will die, which is happening in this picture. So it's a neglected effect of global warming, but it's going to be a huge effect, because if the oceans are dead, which is predicted, there will be no kind of life for us left. It means getting through the phases of that Gandhi described. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, because when we mourn for the loss of tiny insects like the bees, there were wars going on in Syria, and obviously people would say, oh my God, really? Are you a responsible politician? Are you talking about bees now? People are dying in Syria. So you have to be bold and brave to put these issues on the agenda, even if no one is willing to listen. And 10 years after we started warning for the decline of insects, there are now huge studies and scientists warning us for a great collapse of our ecosystems because 75% of our insects have gone. So my mission is not to be afraid to put even tiny problems on the agenda in the eyes of the public opinion. It is important to care about all forms of life, including insects, even though a lot of people will say, insects, what are you fussing up about? So that's our strategy. Don't be afraid, put the issues on the agenda and try to raise awareness on issues like Earth Overshoot Day. Anyone heard of it? It basically means that the planet provides us with natural resources that we can use throughout the year, and it will regenerate the next year if you're just taking care, you're not using too much. Scientists warned us in 1971 that the total amount of resources that is supposed to be distributed throughout the year without damage to the planet or living on the resources of next generations. We were through the resources at December 21st, which means the rest of the year you obviously still use resources, but the Earth will not be able to regenerate. And last year it's at August 2nd, even August 1st, 2018, which means the way we live as mankind is damaging the planet and is, for the most part, we're using the resources that belong to future generations. So it's not very sensible if you're all about human rights and protecting humankind as well to live like this. So our mission is to tell other politicians that it's not sensible the way we live, and obviously a lot of scientists conclude that and agree with us. And you could think, well, maybe man is not as intelligent after all, because can you think of any other animal who is destroying his own living environment? I cannot. But still, I think man is intelligent. We only have a big flaw in the way we perceive things, because in politics and in society as general, I think we have lost the sense of being part of nature, having a connection to nature, and we have this misconception of man being the top predator and the top species who is the ruler of it all. And we think a lot of the problems that are caused in society today, the global crisis we deal with, derives from this mindset. And with Albert Einstein in mind, that you cannot solve problems like climate change or the loss of biodiversity with the same way of thinking that we created them. We are the only party who adopt this model. We're the only party in the Netherlands, but the other 60 parties around the world choose this model. We're part of nature. We have to realize we're interconnected, and taking care of other species and the planet as a whole and all its inhabitants is the only way that we ourselves can flourish. And Gandhi said there's enough for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. This model provides for everybody's need. We will take care of each other. We will be aware that we're interconnected. We will take care of other living beings, and that enables us to have a prosperous life and not a greedy life where some people have all and other people have nothing. I'm wondering what the next, So when you take it in mind, if we had chosen not to have an intensive dairy industry, it's easy to see that we wouldn't have that much of a problem with climate change. Obviously, there are other factors contributing to climate change as well, but the dairy industry, the animal industry, is a huge contributor, and now we are stuck with climate change. That wouldn't have happened if we had respected animals for the sentient beings that they are and decided it's not okay to impregnate female cows every single year to bear a calf so we can take her milk. And if we had decided not to have intensive farming and feed almost half of the grain harvest of the world to animals, we wouldn't have this much of a problem with feeding the world, and we wouldn't have this disbalance of 1 billion people being hungry and 1 billion people being overweight. If you know that for the production of, for instance, pork meat, at least 5 kilograms of protein are needed that you could have fed to people directly, and for a kilogram of beef, it could be up to 25 kilograms of protein. You could feed all the people in the world, but not if you waste so much good protein to animals first. So had we decided that it was not okay to put pigs in stables like this, in this huge amount of numbers that we raised them and killed them in, we wouldn't have had this much of a problem with feeding the world. And the most typical picture for me was, have you ever heard about palm oil and how it destroys the rainforests in Indonesia and Malaysia? Palm oil is basically a cheap ingredient for the food industry. It's in ice creams, it's in cookies, and it's also a fossil fuel. And in order to get palm oil production, the rainforests have to go. Now, the picture up front, it's a very sad picture because obviously the rainforest in Indonesia is the last habitat of the orangutan, and it's destroyed, so these poor animals lose their habitat. And this picture, it's kind of blurry, but this was footage from the orangutan who saw his last tree cut down. You see the bulldozer there at the right, and he tried to fight back. There's a film on the internet, small footage, and he tried to fight back the bulldozer that was coming to destroy his home, really. And you know, if we had decided early on that it's not okay to destroy the natural habitat of another living being, if we had decided to respect the rights of this orangutan, that this living being has a right to a part of the world itself, we wouldn't have had this massive loss of crucial rainforests and have this giant pollution of the palm oil industry because it uses a lot of pesticides. People are forced to work in slave labor, actually. So it's a human rights issue, it's an environmental issue, and we wouldn't have had that issue if we decided to respect the rights of this orangutan first. So that's what we try to convey in politics, to make the connection between taking care of animals and respecting animals and what it means for us. So we also are inspired by philosophers like Schopenhauer, the assumptions that animals are without rights and the illusion that our treatment of them has no moral significance is a positively outraged example of Western crudity and barbarity. Universal compassion is the only guarantee of morality. So if we care about human rights, we have to start with taking serious the issue of animal rights. So what we did in the Netherlands is not only making the connection between the use of animals and environmental factors like global warming and biodiversity, but just sticking up for individual animals as well, because they have intrinsic value and their interests count. So we fought against having wild animals performed in circuses, and because an animal rights party like ours was elected, and we put on political pressure.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay. We have a ban on the use of wild animals in circuses now in the Netherlands, so we're very happy about that. And we created a shift of the debate because in the bill that the government wrote to ban the use of wild animals, they explicitly acknowledged that it's not a human right to use animals, and the feelings of society are shifting. back in the day, it might be okay to use animals for anything we like. Now our government said, well, if it's just for entertainment, then maybe not. And that's a good precedent, obviously, for other uses of animals that we try to ban. We also had a ban on I told you we had a ban on the raising of fox for fur, and we still have mink farming in the Netherlands, but that will also be banned with the same motivation as the ban of the use of wild animals in circuses. It's not okay to use animals for anything you like. So fur is out of the question, or will be, because unfortunately the majority of the parties in Parliament were not willing to come up with compensation for fur farmers, so they decided on a phasing out kind of system. So the fur farming will end in the Netherlands in 2024, and obviously 2024 it hurts my heart because it's going to be, still 6 years, but it will end in the Netherlands. So we're shifting. What you see in the Netherlands is that the moral baseline is shifting. The people are further than our government, but also our government is recognizing that it's not okay to use animals for anything you please. So that was one of our successes. And another success, I went to see the horse carriages here in New York City. It broke my heart. Obviously, we had horse carriages in Amsterdam, our capital, but we are elected in Amsterdam, so we have 3 seats out of the 45 in the city council. We proposed a bill, we gained the support, and the use of horse carriages will be banned as of 2019. So horse carriages out of the streets of Amsterdam. And our sister party, Animal Justice Party in Australia, had the same success in fighting the horse carriages in Melbourne. So horse carriages will be out of the streets of Melbourne as well. So these are things that our political party can do and will do, and hopefully be successful. What we also do is stick up for individual animals. This was Hermine, a cow who broke loose when she was sent to slaughter earlier this year. And the funny thing here, she escaped. She escaped from slaughter and she hid in the woods. So she was there for like 6 weeks, and people around the woods were reporting on her. And the guy who owned her couldn't catch her because she was way too smart. And so there was a catch vibe going on, and obviously the local authorities were afraid she would run into the road and cause accidents, so the pressure was gaining to shoot her down. And the moment we heard about her story, we decided on a crowdfunding to rescue her. And she was so smart, it was so funny. She lived in the forest, she hid in the forest, so hunters couldn't find her. But in the forest, there's not enough for her to eat. So she broke in barns that were nearby and stole some of the food of the animals that lived there, so she could survive. And when the farm owner reported that, he had contact with the owner of this beautiful cow, and then he decided on a plan to put sedation kind of stuff in the food so she would go unconscious and they could catch her. And then she just decided to eat less, so she didn't buy into this trap. But we started crowdfunding, so we opened up a crowdfunding. People could support us by donating money to save her, and we saved her life, and we saved the life of her best friend that she had escaped with. She was caught right after they both escaped, so Hermine got away, and her best friend was caught and was brought to the last station where she was supposed to fatten up to be sent to slaughter. And people were so supportive of the story of this cow that they donated so much that we could rescue both of them. And they now live in a sanctuary in the north of the Netherlands. This was the day she got out to the meadow. She's so happy, and by rescuing her, we got to tell the story in the press of how many animals are slaughtered every year, because obviously the press will be like, oh really, are you saving one cow? Do you know how many cows go to slaughter? And we're like, yeah, you should pay more attention to all the cows in the slaughter every year. So she's a great ambassador for all her sisters in the dairy industry, because Hermine and her best friend are now in this sanctuary. There are footages of them being best friends. Basically, they are at each other's side every single time. So they together tell the story that animals are like us. They have friendships like us. They hate pain like us. They want to escape pain like us. And they just want to be free and they want to be happy. So she's a national symbol, actually. She went all over the world because her story was so great. And she is really helping getting people to realize that no animal wants to be sent to his death. So another thing we did successfully, or half successfully in the Netherlands, was proposing a ban to, proposing a bill to ban religious slaughter without stunning. In the Netherlands, for almost 100 years now, there are rules on the protection of animals, as paradoxical it may seem, when they are slaughtered. So you cannot slaughter an animal without sedating them first, making sure they are unconscious, to spare them unnecessary stress and pain. Obviously, slaughter will never be humane, but this is what you have to do in the Netherlands. But there's an exemption for religious slaughter. They do not have to use the stunning of the animals, so the animals are slaughtered by full consciousness. And obviously, it's a debate that no one is keen to pick on. The Green parties and the other parties who tend to pay attention to animal welfare do not want to offend the religious community, so they will never come up with such a bill. And the right-wing politics, the right-wing parties are basically, their motives are not very, very pure. So they will, if they will propose such a bill, it will be out of motives that are, bashing Muslims. But what we did was put the fundamental question on the political agenda: is it okay to harm animals greater than is necessary for religious freedom? And we passed the bill in which the answer was, it's not okay, you should protect animals, and there's no way religious freedom is a good enough reason to cause them more harm than is absolutely necessary. It passed the House of Representatives, but the Senate voted against, so it didn't pass all along, but we're trying again. And when it is passed, we have had a huge fundamental new precedent, because having animal rights prevailing over religious freedom is obviously very, very powerful for all the other debates we fight on animal rights. But what we also do is do not ever contain the myth that there is such a thing as humane slaughter. So this was me right before a debate on law enforcement in slaughterhouses, and I brought a picture of this cow which was made by the SAFE movement, the worldwide organizations that does vigils at slaughterhouses. They took her picture. So before I go into the debate with the Minister of Agriculture on the law enforcement and maybe the improvements that can be made or must be made in slaughterhouses, I will tell everyone in the debate and also the public while doing so that there is no way, there's no such thing as humane slaughter. Because look at this animal, she is in front of the slaughterhouse and she is scared to death. This is what it looks like when we decide to kill animals. Even if you follow all the rules, this is still what it looks like. So we are bringing in the activism into politics, really. And another way we use is, this is our sort of like State of the Union, opening up our parliamentary year, and the plans of the government for the next year are revealed, and the King will read them. and obviously you're supposed to dress up nice. Every member of parliament is invited and should be there. And what we do is use this occasion to make statements for our political goals for the animals. So this is our party leader, Marianne Thieme, and she's right there at the left, opposing the hunt. She's asking attention to the pollution and the overfishing of our seas. She is making a joke with Che Guevara, having carrots around her, stating that a peaceful future is a plant-based future, and opposing the trade investment partnership between the EU and the US. So we use that opportunity to make statements and raise our issues, ask questions, or raise awareness for our issues in the press. And this was my outfit last year. I had a dress made with 1,200 crosses on it, because in the Netherlands, every single minute, 1,200 animals, more than 1,200 animals are killed in slaughterhouses. And people don't know that, people don't realize that it's that amount. So when you go in a dress like that, the journalists will ask, what's with your dress, what is happening? And you can tell them, well, every single minute in this country, 1,200 animals are killed in slaughterhouses, and the king is about to address the public and tell them about the government's plans. And my bet is there's not a word on animals, let alone the slaughtering of animals, in his address. So when we were in there listening to the king, 24,000 animals were killed in just 20 minutes, and not a single word on their interests. So it's called expressive politics. We're not just there to debate, we're not just there to write bills or resolutions or amendments, we're putting it out there with everything we got. And I brought Maria from the Safe Movement. She's the founder of the Safe Movement in the Netherlands. She was my guest, so I brought in activism in politics at the most important event of the year, because activism is obviously like conservative politics. They try to, shut activists up or make laws and regulations that will make it harder for activists to do their work. And we try to do the opposite, to get activism into politics and make sure that people know that it's perfectly normal to fight for animals. So she was there with her dress. We made her statement from the Safe Movement, which is bear witness. If you see suffering, don't look away. Come closer, try to help the animal, bear witness. It's very important. So she was my guest, and we were in the room where the king and the queen would be. You can see the thrones, and we were making the international animal rights statement. So having animal rights activism in the center of politics is an important part of our mission. And our party leader had this year on a dress with all sorts of names for replacers of meat and milk, because even in America and also in France, the meat industry is trying to get legislation through that producers of plant-based alternatives cannot use terms like milk. So they want to ban the use of the word almond milk or soy milk, because it's not milk, and milk is only the product that comes from a cow. And they're also, I believe it's in Missouri, where you can actually get a fine of $300,000 if you use the wrong name. So to oppose that, she made a dress. She had a dress made with every single vegan plant-based name that would be forbidden if those conservative politicians had their way. So we make statements wherever we can. Since our breakthrough in 2006, we were entering Parliament with 2 seats. We have now 5 seats in the House of Representatives, 2 in the Senate, 18 in regional parliament, 1 seat in 12 city councils. That's not correct anymore. We have now 33 seats in city councils, among them Amsterdam, who banned the horse carriages, and 1 seat in the European Parliament. And next year there will be elections in the European Parliament. We hope to double our number of seats, and we're working together with other animal rights parties throughout Europe. So maybe if they get elected too, we'll have a stronger base for the animal rights politics in the European Parliament. And this is our expansion worldwide. There are 18 parties for animals worldwide. Some of them are elected. Others, like the Humane Party here in the US, have obviously a difficult time getting elected because of their electoral system. In the Netherlands, we have proportional representation, which helps new political movement to get elected. Very more so than here in the US, but still, the Humane Party is here. They have a candidate for the Senate in California. His name is Clifton Roberts. I just made an endorsement for him because he is saying vote conscious, vote vegan, vote Humane Party, and he's trying to change the politics here in the US. And we all know you need some kind of change here for compassion and sustainability. So go Clifton Roberts, running for Senate. I hope he does well, and I'm working together with Tracy to do everything we can to support his campaign. On the expansion of the animal rights movement into politics, we have, well, this is what it looks like. We as a party for the animals in the Netherlands, obviously because we were the first one who got elected, we are better funded than the other parties, so we try to be the center of boosting this movement further on. So we organize meetings with people who are willing to found a party for animals in their own country. We meet up, we try to learn from each other, we try to support each other. So we do this every year. This one was in The Hague, but we've been in other countries as well. And I was in Moldavia a couple of weeks ago. Moldavia is one of the poorest countries in Europe, actually the poorest country. There's a lot of corruption. You would think people have other issues to worry about than animal rights, but still, people in Moldavia they founded a party for animal rights and they are participating in the elections that are coming up next year. How great is that? In a country so poor that people stick up and say, we're going to stick up for the animals, because an animal rights party is basically the only new political vibe that will get this country out of the crisis. So that's really great and really empowering to speak to so many people around the world and realize that it's a growing global movement and not just a single success in the Netherlands. So these people are from Canada. Jordan Reichert on the left is up for elections in Victoria for the city council. The elections were yesterday and tomorrow, so it's on 2 dates. And Canada has not such a supporting electoral system as the Netherlands, but he is fighting. These are the people from Australia who do have a seat in a national parliament or a state parliament. And I want to show you a little about what can happen when you have even one seat in parliament. This is their representative, Mark Pearson, and he is fighting together with people, local activists on the kangaroo hunt in Australia. And it's a good example of how we work together. In Australia, kangaroos are fiercely hunted because the sheep farmers tell everybody that kangaroos eat all the food that is supposed to be for the sheep. And it's really, really horrible because they are nocturnal animals, so the hunt is at night, and obviously you cannot aim as well as you can during daylight. And even in daylight, there are a lot of hunt accidents, and you can imagine it even worse during the night. So what happens is a lot of the animals are shot but not killed right away, so they suffer a lot. And the worst thing is a lot of the animals killed are new mothers, so they have a baby joey in their pouch, and the mothers are used to sell their meat and their skin for kangaroo leather products, but the joeys are no use to the hunters. So the joeys are taken out of the pouch, are slapped to death against the car of the hunter, or left behind without their moms, without whom they obviously cannot survive. So they go through a horrible process before they die, and it's a really, really dark secret. And because the animal rights activists have a partner in politics by the representative for the Animal Justice Party, here he is with the filmmakers and documentary makers who put so much effort in bringing this documentary out so people know about this horrible kangaroo hunt. And our representative in Australia really helped them because in California there was a ban on the import of kangaroo products, and there was a strong lobby to release that ban, and he just flew in and went over there and he said, hey, I'm an MP from Australia, and what the lobby is telling you is not true. The fact of the matter is that this is the way kangaroos are hunted and you should keep your ban. And he was successful. So California did not release the ban on the import of kangaroo meat and kangaroo leather because he went there to tell them, listen up, I'm an MP and I got the facts, so don't be fooled by the lobby. And he did the same in Russia. The lobby for the export of kangaroo meat from Australia to Russia was very strong, and he just went there and told the Russian authorities about all the contamination in kangaroo meat, because obviously it's very hot in Australia. When you shut down an animal, you put it in a car, and obviously meat needs to be refrigerated right away, otherwise it gets contaminated very soon. And the whole process of this kangaroo hunt is not only horrible for the animals, but it's also asking for food pollution, for contamination of the meat. And he told the Russians that, so the Russians decided, okay, we're going to cut down, no more kangaroo meat for us, which is obviously a huge success. And because of that, we worked together with them. I invited documentary makers into our parliament to screen the movie, to tell us what is happening with the kangaroos. I got to ask questions to our government, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So we're trying to work together to get a European ban on the import of kangaroo meat, and that will help the Australians to cut down the kangaroo hunt altogether. So the good news of today is it's a growing movement. We work together. We're basically the voice of the animal rights movement that's already there in society. And it's not only happening in the Netherlands, but throughout the world. And every single party for animals that is founded helps strengthen this new political movement and this new grassroots political movement, really, because change is happening in society. Animal rights activism is flourishing, and now they have a political voice as well. So I'm here today to support everything that you do in the animal rights movement, everything that the Humane Party is trying to do to get animal rights into the political arena. And I'm very grateful to meet you here today, to talk to you and to see if there are ways that we can strengthen each other and make a better world for the animals. Thank you so much. Hello,
It's very inspiring to hear about your successes.
You can really, because you asked me before, how did you do that to get for example, the animal or the horse carriages out of the streets? Well, being in the center of the political arena means you can propose a bill and you can name and shame the parties that vote against it, because you have so much support for animal rights improvements, animal welfare improvements among the public. But as long as there's no one in politics who can actually propose the bills, people will not know why nothing is happening. So when we propose a bill or a resolution and parties vote against it, we publicize it so people can see, oh my God, I thought this party was kind of animal friendly, and now they're voting against protecting animals from stable fires, for example. So once you get elected, you have a really huge spin-off in taking the animal rights issue way further than you were when you were outside of Parliament.
Right. You have a seat at the table.
Yeah, you have a seat at the table. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few questions of my own, and then we can open it up to and because it's a fairly small group, we can ask people to give a little bit of background on them, so we can understand where they're coming from. So I'm going to go back to sort of personal. So you you haven't always been a politician. This is something that is fairly new for you. So I guess I just want to go back to your personal journey. Like, how did you get into animal rights? How did you become a candidate for your party?
Well, first of all, when I was raised like most of us in a family where, and a society really, where it's perfectly normal to eat meat and drink milk and have cheese. And when I was 16, I saw footage of the animal industry, and I was so appalled. I was shocked, and I decided that day that I didn't want to eat meat anymore. I became a vegetarian. I had no idea what veganism was at the time. I just saw the footage and connected it to eating meat. So I was a vegetarian since I was 16, 26 years ago, and gradually I knew more and more and more about the animal industry and decided to skip milk and cheese and eggs as well. But I was not an activist at the time. I just decided on these things in my personal life, and I never really wanted to be a politician either. And that's kind of typical for our party, I guess. It's not a matter of having a desire to be in politics, but we're so strongly motivated to speak up for animals, and when you see that other parties and other politicians don't, you get a feeling of, well, somebody has to do it, then it should be me. But we regard ourselves more like activists who happen to be in politics than politicians who also do some activism.
So how did you actually end up becoming a candidate for the party?
Well, the party was founded in 2002 by a group of people who were active in the animal welfare NGOs. And they were really frustrated because they had been working so hard on the banning of the mink fur farms in the Netherlands, and they were nearly there. The bill was about to be sent to the parliament, and then the government fell, and there came new elections, and there came a whole new conservative government, and they said, okay, we're not going to go through with banning the mink fur farms. So they were so frustrated that politicians can just decide to neglect all the work that animal rights activists have done over the years and just change policies overnight. They said, well, we are fed up, we're going to form our own party for the animals, we're going to do it ourselves. So it was a small group of people that I did not know, but they needed someone to organize the party. And when I heard about them and they needed someone to, get things going, I thought, okay, this is for me. And so I quit my job and I went to work for them. But in my mind, I was to be, the girl in the back, arranging everything, doing the campaigns. And then new elections came and they said, well, do you want to be a candidate? And I'm like, no way, I'm not a politician. I'm just the girl who, gets things going in the back. But obviously when you have a party, you need candidates. So they said, no, we want you. So I decided, well, if that's what's needed, then I'll be a candidate. And then I got elected.
So reluctant initially.
Reluctant. I was very reluctant. Yeah. Because politics in itself is really not a fun place to be, right? Anyone want to be a politician? No. So, but being there with this very clear mission, that is rewarding. Because whatever happens, I always get the chance to say to, for instance, the Minister of Agriculture, what the hell is going on? Why are you okay with this? Why are we sending ducks to slaughter for just making money? Because in the Netherlands people don't eat a lot of duck meat. They are kept in horrible conditions. And I can raise the debate and ask her questions, which she finds very annoying, but put these issues on the agenda, and that's very rewarding.
And is it televised? Are all these discussions televised?
Yeah, every single debate you can watch at home. So everything's
they're really
televised.
put on the spot. They can't hide.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I think you said you got about 3% of the vote. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about 3.2 with 5 seats. We have 150 seats in the House of Representatives, and we have 5 of them now. Yeah.
So would you say that the people who are your base are mainly vegan, or do you kind of have crossover?
We have crossovers. A lot of The thing is, and I think animal rights activists will recognize this, a lot of people care about animals. I dare say basically everyone cares about animals, but not everyone has made the connection because the industry is so powerful in keeping all the information from the public with the support of all the conservative parties. So people have no idea that while they care about animals, what the animals have gone through for the food that they have bought. So it's a long process of getting the information out. But people care about animals, so they want things to change. And a lot of our voters will be aware of the animal industry and trying to cut down on their meat. They're growing awareness, but it's not at all the case that every single voter of the Party for the Animals is a vegan. They're just in the process of getting more and more aware.
Would you say that most vegans do vote for your party?
I hope so. Because there's no other party sticking up for the animals like we do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we covered this question. You've got local and national level coverage. So how do you, so especially with local, because you've got quite a lot of candidates there, how do you go about finding them? How do you go out and find people who are willing to enter this dirty arena of politics?
Well, people are very, very motivated, like I was, to just do the job. If there's a chance to be a representative for the animals, you may not like to be in politics, but you can get to stick up for the animals. So that's a big motivational factor for people who run for us. It's not always that easy because you have to combine, for instance, being a member of the city council, you have to combine it with your full-time job. So for the local levels, it's pretty hard to find candidates. But luckily, a lot of people are motivated to do this work because, like you all know, as animal welfare organization people, you work so hard throughout your life. Every single hour is in trying to improve things for the animals. And then politicians decide, nah, we're not going to do it. So a lot of people from the NGOs are very, very keen on, being in the arena themselves, so that they can push the agenda that they have been working so hard on outside the political arena.
And what about things like fundraising? How do you do that? Do you have membership drive? I mean, is that how you raise your?
Yeah, we have memberships, and we try to appeal to our members that they are free to donate whatever they can, and that we can do more if there are more donations. But luckily, politics are not as money-driven in the Netherlands as they are here in the US. So another thing of the faults in your system that would make it rather difficult for an animal rights party to have immediate success like we did, because the level playing field is way out. People who are serving corporate interests will have more money and more chance to be elected. And you serve the interests of the most vulnerable beings on the planet who have no rights whatsoever when it comes to the conservative parties, let alone have money, then you're in a tough spot campaigning for them. But you have to try anyway, because I think people are yearning for politicians who just be in politics for what they believe in, and if they believe in protection of the most vulnerable species on our planet, that's a very, very strong case, and I'm hoping that the money issue will not drive you out of the competition completely.
You're right, so there's a lot of headwinds here, and it's a winner takes all, and it's very driven by money. And I mean, do you get funding? How much of your funding is from the government? Is it mainly government funded, or is it?
It's mainly government funded. But once you're elected, you get money for the people in politics. Like I have co-workers, and they are paid on the government budget. And we don't have a culture in which there are large contributors to political parties. So there are no huge campaigns like yours. Our campaigns overall are way cheaper. There's not too much money going on. And obviously the bigger parties will have some more money and more contributors than the small parties. But it's a whole different ballgame compared to the US.
Right. So I guess in terms of, given the situation that we have in the US, do you think was there any advice that you would give us? I mean, obviously it's a very different system, but seeing the way that it works in the US, do you have any recommendations or strategies that you think would transfer from your successes?
Well, our success when we were not elected, I think that's the best phase I can talk about to advise you from. By just being an animal rights party, we raised the issue and the interests of, for example, the press. They were like, oh really, what's going on with animals then in the Netherlands? And then we would say, well, glad you asked. And you challenge the other candidates on their earlier promises, like here in New York City, where I am told that the mayor promised to get a ban on these horse carriages. If there's no alternative to the candidacy of this mayor who says, hey, listen up, you promised something and you didn't live up for it, so maybe voters who care about animals should vote someone else next time. If there is no alternative, no threat to the people in power, there will definitely be no change whatsoever. So being the challenger, being out there with your animal rights agenda, getting press coverage with free publicity acts. We did a lot of free publicity kind of campaigns because we had no money whatsoever, so we had no money to pay for any campaign at all, but we tried to do free publicity. So it will be on the agenda as an issue that you can put into consideration when you go vote. And I think that animal rights are nowhere near being an issue for voters in the US at a level that will make a difference, but you have to, build this comprehension, I guess.
Right. Thank you. By the way, I absolutely love the dresses with the symbols. It's fantastic. It's like free advertising.
It is. This is the way we try to. Every single day, we are focused on getting the animal rights issue on the agenda, and we're not even as well. It may sound not so kind to someone who has no animal rights politician elected whatsoever, but the political work itself, it's maybe half of our work, because we need to put the issue on the agenda all the time and on the public agenda as well, so the public will respond to, wow, this is weird, why is there no debate whatsoever on the situation in slaughterhouses? So when the public gets angry about an issue they care about, and we do that by informing the public all the time and trying to find creative ways to get attention for our issues, then we have more political pressure to put on the parties that will let the animals down. So we're basically setting the political agenda, but the public opinion agenda as well, and it's always twofold for us.
And I think what was very heartening about what you said is that you're only 3%, right?
Yeah.
But just having 3%, you can put people on the stand and they have to respond in public to your questions. And I think that's incredibly powerful, even if you are a small minority.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, we don't have that, and it's just, you can look at the Democratic, presentation on the policies, and there's not even a mention of animal rights in a 200-page document.
Yeah, it's horrible, I know, but I'm hoping that the rise of the movement worldwide will inspire people in the US to recognize that there is an alternative, and I hope you will take strength of the knowledge that the movement is growing, and that in Canada, where the electoral system is horrible as well, people are being candidate and they're raising the issue, and our candidate in Canada was at a meeting with the Prime Minister Trudeau, and he just raised his hand and asked why the Prime Minister did nothing for animal rights. And obviously, politicians are not used to be asked questions about animals at all. So while the Prime Minister of Canada is a very eloquent speaker, he just stumbled for words. So that's one thing, that's one blow you get to, you get to give by just raising the issue and being a candidate and having, you're challenging the system. And obviously it's harder for you guys here in the US and in Canada than it was in our country, but you will have some effect.
Right.
I truly believe that.
Yeah, just by raising even if you don't get someone elected, just still raising the questions.
Yeah, because I truly believe I was in a Cube of Truth yesterday with this lovely organizer who's here today as well. I am convinced that we as people, we do not want to harm others. There's no natural desire to be harming everybody else. It's just that we have lost the connection, and the industry has been very successful at that. We have no idea what harm is done for our meals and for the jackets we buy. So the only thing that is needed is that we open up again, create awareness, but basically what people really want is to be kind to each other and be kind to animals. So we don't have to teach people anything new, really. It's a basic moral intuition that all of us have, and we need to clear out the shit that has been blocking us from being in touch with that intuition. And that will always be more powerful than the most corrupt corporate candidate you can find. He will win in the short term with all his money and all his corruption, but in the end, we are moral beings, and we want to be in touch with what is really important. You just have just a bit more shit to take care of, I guess, in the US than we did, but you will have, you have this powerful feeling that people will and desire to connect to. So never forget that.
That's very uplifting. I think people need to hear that sometimes. There's so much doom and gloom around with especially the state politics right now. So, I mean, you're here to talk at the UN next week, so maybe can you tell us a little bit about what you are going to, I know it's not specifically about animal rights, but you are here, and that's animal rights is something that you are determined to bring up. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you're hoping that you will get out there, and you can mention the screening on Monday as well.
So I was invited to visit the UN as part of a program from our State Department. It's not about animal rights at all. Obviously, since I'm going to be there, I'm going to raise the issue of animal rights because I think it's ridiculous, really, that the UN, who is all about peace and safety in the world, does not address the issue of animal agriculture and its impact on the safety of the world, not only through climate change and the huge disbalance in the distribution of food in the world. We wouldn't be having this hunger problem if we just started to eat plant-based diets. But the policies of the UN on animal agriculture are, conveniently shipped away to the FAO in Rome or the UNEP, the environmental program of the UN, and here at the headquarters, it's never debated on. So I'm going to raise the issue of the impact of animal agriculture on peace and safety in the world by screening Dominion Monday night as a side event. I will be inviting UN officials to come and look and start the debate on the impact of animal agriculture on world peace, regarding climate change, regarding the distribution of food, regarding the preservation of natural resources, and obviously the impact on the animals themselves, because the violence we do to animals is a subject that the UN can no longer look away from. We have to start the debate, and I'm trying to start it on Monday by screening Dominion and inviting UN officials to come join me. And in the week, I will be talking to UN officials. I will raise the question every single time I can.
That's great. And so you mentioned that you had been to FAO in Rome. What was your interaction there? What did they have to say about animal agriculture?
Well, they do recognize that animal agriculture is the main cause of global warming. It was actually their study that inspired us to make the movie Meat to Truth, because there was this FAO report and nobody was talking about it. But they concluded that animal agriculture is a bigger threat to climate than transport all over the world. So they do recognize it, but it doesn't get debated on the highest levels. So there will be UN scientists and UN reporters acknowledging the impact of animal agriculture on the climate, but then all the people in power just choose to neglect it. So the FAO has a lot of knowledge, but it doesn't come to a strong debate, and I'm trying to change that.
When you're there at the United Nations, is this going to be similar to the role you had in Parliament, where you're putting people on the spot and they are forced to respond to your questions in a recorded session? Is that it's going to be an analogy of what's happening in
I'm guessing. Well, obviously, being a member of Parliament, I have been part of delegations on foreign missions. So I was in Afghanistan, for example, because our troops were there, and then you get to talk to all these different big shots really to the president, and they will be amazed that a member of a delegation, a member of a group of politicians is an animal rights activist. So the thing that will happen is every single time like, oh my God, could you tell me more about that? What is this? Do you really have an animal rights party in your country? And so it immediately has an effect. And people are amazed and intrigued at the same time, and the conversation will turn to animal rights just by being there.
Right.
So I'm hoping that will happen at the UN as well, because it is my experience that it will happen everywhere I go, because people are surprised and do not know what to make of you, and then you can talk about it.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
just by walking into, have you got a special dress picked out for the...
I have no special dress for the UN, no. I thought my presence will be shocking enough.
And you were going to check out the restaurant at the UN, right? And see what...
It's the first thing I will do.
Yeah.
How is their food supply? Is it plant-based and peaceful, or is it animal-based and creating more problems with peace in the world? That will be my first check and my first question.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be very excited to hear how you get on.
I will report back.
Yeah, we
report back.
definitely want to hear an update after you've had your week there. So I think we've covered most of the things. I'm sorry, I know we've had a presentation, but I really wanted to ask you these questions. And I'm going to open up to anybody who wants to ask a specific question. And if they do have a question, maybe you could just give 30 seconds on who you are and what your key focus is. And do you want to come over here and make a do it in the right?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for being here. This was just fabulous, and I'm glad to see it's being recorded, because this is something I really want to share around with all my social media things. But, and I'm so glad you're going to bring this to the UN, because I've had some personal experience with the UN. I know what animal eaters they are, and so.
Okay, I'm prepared now.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And when I hear about people going on the UN climate marches only to, right at the end of it, then go eat, a chicken somewhere, it just appalls me. So I'm really glad you're doing that. Personally, I was just curious about, you said you spoke at the UN, the NYU.
Yeah.
And here we are in the NYU neighborhood. I live in this area, and I'm shocked every day. Well, not shocked because I'm kind of used to it by now, but it saddens me watching the NYU students and how oblivious they seem to animal rights issues. I watch them walking around in their Canada Goose coats, and I and I see their enormous waste of food and plastic. I mean, if you just look in the garbage bins, it's plastic straws. I mean, just like they seem to have no sense at all. So I was just wondering, what was the response to your talk at NYU?
Well, I was invited there. Paula from Anonymous for Voiceless helped me out and getting in touch. And there's actually an animal welfare collective at NYU. And these students all care deeply about animal rights and the environment. So the room was filled with good kids, really, because they were all very motivated to take action for animal rights and the environment. So I did not see one single student yesterday who had the behavior that you just described. So I guess there's hope, because there were really, really, really good kids yesterday. And the sad thing is, still, but it's a reality, these people were in the minority, but we're really working really hard to change it. As I said, I was part of a Cube of Truth yesterday, which I do everywhere when I get a chance to, in my own country, or when I travel. I try to hook up with the local chapter, and it's all about presenting the facts that people are not aware of. What is the reality of the dairy industry, for example, or the ag industry, or fish, and have open conversations with them. Most of the time, it's the first time people ever see footage like that, and they are completely shocked. And there are outreachers who have an open conversation and who could ask, like, well, did you know this? How do you feel about that? Did you have any idea that you were supporting this by buying animal products? And it's really beautiful to have these open conversations, and these chapters are all over the world, and people are waking up, people are becoming aware, people are making changes, but it's still a minority group who has to help other people to learn, to be educated, so they are able to make the choices that are in line with what they feel inside morally. So we will get there, but it's it's a task we have to pick up every single day.
What school did you speak to at NYU?
I was at the Global Academic Center for Spiritual. I was at the Global Center for Academic and Spiritual Life, and the group of students that organized these events was the Animal Welfare Collective. So they were really nice, really motivated, very, very good people. Yeah, and we had vegan sushi. Yeah.
I just want to, I think it's great that you mentioned them, and then you should definitely reach out to them, because they're a great organization who does try to have talks with great people like us. And all the things that you noted, these are things that you can bring to them, and because they are in an organization in the school, it'd be a great resource for you to try to tap into that and help make those changes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And actually, I was thinking that would be an interesting question to ask the audience at Dominion, if, hopefully there'll be UN people there. How many of them are aware that this is the kind of practices that happen? And this is in Australia, right?
Yeah,
Which actually probably has some of the stronger of all the countries in the world. I imagine it's probably in terms of the so-called welfare laws are supposedly stronger than a lot of other countries. But this is all happening. This movie is about Australia and France.
Yeah, most of the footage is shot in Australia, but their statement is that, which is, I guess it's true, it's basically the same everywhere around the world. There can be gradual differences between the different systems that the animals are kept in. Have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't. Frankly, I'm not looking forward to it because I find it very upsetting. But
yeah,
but I will be there.
It is. In my impression, it doesn't differ that much from the footage I've seen from American industries. And yesterday at the Cube, I talked to a guy who was from Germany, and he was like, okay, but this is American footage, and I'm from Germany, so European laws are stricter, so it won't be that bad in Germany. And one of the animal rights organizations in my country and in Germany just got footage out this week of the dairy industry that was just as horrible. So sadly for him, I could, break his illusion that in his own home country it's the same. So the thing is really that obviously there are some differences in the rules and regulations, so it can be bad or it can be even worse. But whenever footage comes out, it's always horrible. It's always horrible.
So actually, in a way, it's good that it's from Australia, because if we were another country, they could say, well, that doesn't happen in our country. But Australia probably has similar laws to Europe, and it's happening there, so people can see that they can't deny it. And I think it'd be interesting to see how many people at the UN know that this is what's happening.
I'm guessing none of them. I'm guessing none of them.
Really? With all the YouTube and everything?
How many people actually go and sit on
That's
their couch
true.
on
You're
a
right. They
Wednesday
don't
night and thinking, oh, I'm going to look up the horrors
It's
of
true.
the animal industry? Nobody does that.
Nobody looks.
You have to be confronted, and most people see and look away because it's so horrible. So we have to be there to support people, to take up the courage to look and to find that there are alternatives, and to find support from people who are just like them. I used to eat meat until I was 16. I had no idea. And so I know what it is like to be shocked and finding your way to find alternatives. And when I turned vegetarian, there was one burger at the market. I remember it tasted like carton. So I was very motivated. And a lot of people, when you're first confronted, you have to have so much motivation to change your life overnight. So I think there's hope, but we have to be there for the people who are willing to change and support them and point out what alternatives there are. Vegan 22 is a great group. So help people when they're shocked to take the next step.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Do you want to come up? Yeah.
Yes, come up here.
Make sure you edit this out.
I'm having another terrible hair day.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for what you're doing. And what you're doing is what everyone needs to do, and that's to fill the need. When there's a need, somebody has to come forth and do it, because the problem is a lot of people, they're sitting, they're complaining, they're over, and that's what's happening. And the fact that you jumped into action and did something so unprecedented is very inspiring. My question to you is this, because I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. I'm Voices for Shelter Animals, and we're focusing on shelter reform and making this a no-kill city for these shelter animals. And I never thought I'd be lobbying. I was like, what is that? And I started by making videos to expose. I made videos exposing the shelter. And that was fun for me. That was creative. And the next thing I know, because there was a need, all of a sudden I'm seeing all these politicians. My question to you is, how is this shift for you? Because this is a very different reality for me. And when I'm learning, and it's a very hard lesson to me, is that you're supposed to keep emotions out of it. It's statistics and numbers. And I just want to scream. And I just want to I have lost it in some situations, because it's basically secondhand trauma we're experiencing. We're watching animals die in real time, and I'm sitting to this person, well, 93% of this, 6% of that, what's the numbers? And I'm like, come on, let's do something, let's do it now, because as you know, legislation can take forever. So how is that shift for you, and how did you able to handle your emotions and come into a mindset and feeling in this position?
Yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is, we all care about animals. I truly believe that. Maybe not the psychopaths, but when you're a human being, you have the ability to connect with other living beings. And we are all shocked when we see animal abuse right in front of us, like a horse being beaten or a dog being kicked. So that's a basic human reaction and response. So obviously I have that as well. But this first primal response is just the beginning, because I feel like I owe it to the animals to take the next step and really think about what is effective and what is not. So obviously I want to scream sometimes as well, very loud, very hard, because you're just so frustrated with the abuse of innocent beings that is not necessary. But then I remember this is not helping them because angry people do not invite other people to listen to what they have to say. So I think about the animals, calm myself, and force myself to adopt an effective strategy. And that is, at the beginning it was hard for me, but now it's unnatural. Because you have to invite people to the message. But it can be hard because you are very, very much aware of the suffering. When you are in a pig farm or at a slaughterhouse, it is very difficult being there, and you cannot rescue the animals that you have contact with at that moment. You can maybe spare the suffering of their kind in future, but the animal that's right there in front of you will get killed, and it's very, very hard. But I think we should support each other in the difficulties we experience. And I don't know, have you ever seen the movie The Ghosts in Our Machine? Maybe you should check it out. It's from the animal rights photographer Joanne MacArthur. And she actually experiences post-traumatic stress disorder, a life form, because she tries to tell the story of the animals. So she would go to like a mink farm and photographer the captured mink, and she will obviously experience, she photographs the animals because their story needs to get out, but she has to leave the animals in these horrible conditions. So she does a lot of hard work, but she really needs to let go of all the pain, to go to a shelter every now and then, to relax with animals who are happy. So she has to take care of her mental health because she's doing such hard work. And I think we should recognize that it's hard for all of us and be open about it and try to find support. But for me, it's very effective to remember that, well, sometimes I think about the civil rights movement, who obviously had a long and hard fight, which was not easy at all. These people had to endure so much, and they also had to be, they had to communicate in an open way, because if they were screaming about what you do to me is horrible, nobody would listen to them. So there are people in the past who have endured so much for the fight they were fighting, that I'm thinking, well, if they could have done it, then I should be able to do this for the animals, because I strongly believe the animals need us to be as effective as we can. And if I'm screaming, I'm not effective.
I know that's what I'm finding. We're trying to encourage advocates to take that anger and put it into action, take action,
Yeah.
because we understand, and because they're so overwhelmed, they don't know what to do with their emotions. So it's coming out in ways that, if you look at it going, you know, that's the scary stuff, you know, how some activists are looked at by that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
But, you know, trying to get people to take that anger as what you did, and you took your concerns and your love for the animals, that you made it a positive.
I did.
In a positive way.
I did, and I have to admit, I also enjoy annoying the hell out of the conservative politicians. So I have some channels for my for my frustration, and one of them is annoying the crap out of them. Yeah.
But I like also the creative way, which I think is something important for advocates to know, that wherever you are, I mean, I see myself as a walking billboard, I have shirts, and you know, always take that opportunity to get your message out, no matter where you are, because you never know who you're speaking to, what that connection could be,
It's true.
and where that can lead you. And I just had one more quick question as far as media. Media here, I don't know how it is in Holland, but we find it very hard to get media attention here. Like, for example, I've called media and they actually hang up on me. They go, this is not a story. I go, the fact that they're killing healthy, adoptable, tree-bound animals and giving them, you know, specific situations. They go, this is not news. And it's very difficult for us to get our message out.
Yeah.
And even when we've given information, which is really disturbing, based on our proof, they will still go to the shelter and believe what they're saying, we're providing you the proof here. And how is the media in Holland, are they more open to doing the truth about what's really going on there?
That's changing, but rather recently, the media in the Netherlands would be reporting on one horse being stuck in the mud, or one dog breeder mistreating his pups, maybe. And just recently, the media are more and more interested in the truth behind the commercial industries. And I think the credits for that go to the animal rights movement, who have actually de-radicalized in the Netherlands. The main animal rights organizations are in charge by people who were even convicted for freeing animals at fur farms, for example. So when they were young, they freed animals out of fur farm, and they went through a trial and got convicted. But now they adopted a different strategy, and they are running the most influential animal rights organizations in the Netherlands. And it's very funny because the debate on, I don't know how it's here in the US, but in the Netherlands it's always about, wow, people with strong ideas, they radicalize and they will become dangerous. And with the animal rights movement, there's a counter movement going on. People who were radicalized maybe in the 90s or the early years of 2000 have gone back and are now adopting effective strategies. And they put out very shocking footage of, for example, the duck industry in the Netherlands. And the media are getting interested because, I guess, because it's gone away from the tricky part of the radicalization part. These people have decided to de-radicalize, but still be, out there with the truth. And since, well, I would say the last 2 years, the media do cover that. So, and I don't know if that will happen in the United States, but I do know that we're at the grace of their decisions. It's not easy to get your agenda in the media if they are not interested at all. And it forces you to keep searching for creative ways to get their attention. But it can be hard, I know that, yeah.
So you mentioned about not being perceived as being radical. So in terms of the other policies of your party, where would you say, on the political spectrum, where are you guys located approximately?
Well, politically, obviously, they think we are radical because we have a radical approach to our economy as well. We are the first party to say, and until today, we're yet the only party to say that the only economy that will be sustainable in the future is an economy that respects the boundaries of the planet. So there's no way economic growth is the solution, it is the problem. And no other party is willing to acknowledge that. So we are seen as total radicals. But not in the way of, there's radicalism in activism and Muslim radicalism. What I just talked about, the debate on radicalism is about individuals in society, and politically we have quite radical ideas. But people respond, and people know that when everything we eat and wear and sleep in the houses, everything derives from nature. We cannot create houses ourselves, we need natural resources. So if there's one planet, and that's the planet, that's our base. She provides everything we need, but not more than that. And we are now living like we have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 planets full of resources. People get it, that it's not sensible. We will not survive that way. So there's one planet, she provides for us, and whatever we do has to be within the boundaries of what the planet dictates. You cannot make up that you are stronger than the planet. So it's very basic logic, and still it's radical. Because all the other parties, they believe in endless growth. Like you can grow your economy every single year. Like there will be new food falling out of the sky or something. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, right, and it's a bit of a Ponzi scheme is in a way. So it's got people focused on, oh, everything's going to be better because it's going to be more money and more products, as if that is the be all and end all.
Yeah. And I find, I'm sorry to hear about the NYU students being so unaware, but I find I see so many young people having this openness and this awareness on that there will be no future for them if we don't change the way we live now, and that it's not about having new iPhones and new gadgets and new clothes, because the thing that will count in the end is, will this planet be a place to live for all of us? And if we continue with all this buying and consumerism, then they're screwed. So I see a lot of awareness and maybe spiritual development in young people that really amazes me. Like people from 20 years old who are so wise compared to the politicians that I have to deal with. So put the young people in power. Maybe you should have young candidates.
Yeah, we'd love to. we need candidates, Young, that's great. And actually, it's interesting when we think about spirituality, because some of my other interests are around, spiritual development and even the role of technology in that, which you're starting to see, especially in California and places like that. So I'm optimistic that there will be more spiritual development through better methodologies and meditation or biofeedback or whatever, So I think I have some optimism as well, and seeing your party makes me optimistic because it's true progress with really concrete, important successes in a short time, actually, because you guys have only had power for 10, 12?
12 years
12
now.
years,
Yeah, 12 years, And one of my answers, I forgot to tell you, I do meditate as well. So that's very helpful in controlling maybe whatever frustrations you might have. So meditation is a good one. What I'm really proud of with my party is that it's totally different from other politics, especially from here in the US, when it's all about telling people what you are going to do for them. You're going to facilitate that they will get more money, or you're going to facilitate that they will have better roads or better cars or whatever. And we don't promise people anything. We're not about what we're going to do for you. Obviously, we are about the system change that will benefit people in the future. But we're not making promises that will benefit you in the next couple of 2 years. So we're making a radical change as well in thinking that politics should be about addressing the needs of the already privileged. And obviously there's poverty in my country as well, and there are differences in income, so we try to fix that. But our agenda is not about serving the short-term interests of humans in the rich West. We are about what is a deeper interest to all of us, to be connected to what is really important in all of our lives, and to make sure that the way we live allows all living beings on the planet to flourish. And it's not about having more money or having more cars or having better roads. We've been there, we've done that. How much more roads do you want? How much more cars do you want? It's over. It's time for this new approach that is much more aligned with who we really are as humans. And I'm so proud that this radical different approach is gaining so much support in my country, because we've been radical all along. I've been in politics for 12 years now, and we've never changed our mission or our party line. This is what we do, this is what we stand for. We are here for the future, we are here for every single living being, and this is what you get when you vote for us. And people want us to do that, so let's hope, I guess.
There's definitely hope. And the percentage of the population in the elections, is that generally going up, that you guys are getting?
Yeah, because we went from 2 seats, we had a steady 2 seats in the national for like 10 years, and now we're up to 5, and we're polling at 8 seats, actually, quite steadily. So that gives a lot of hope to...
Which would be, what, 5, just over 5%?
5%, yeah. So we have never experienced a decline, because everybody, when we first got elected, when we first found it, the reaction of the masses and the press was, it's not going to happen. We're never going to have a party for animals in Parliament. And then when we got there, everybody was like, well, this was one time, and people thought it would be fun to have a party for animals, but you're not going to get re-elected, really, girls. You're here for 4 years. We'll stick up with you, but then you're gone. And then we were re-elected again, and re-elected again, and re-elected again. So people started to realize, wow, there must be something about this party that resonates with what people really want from politics. So we were just there, and we set out our time. Maybe we were a little bit ahead of our time, and people are shifting from being, just laughing at us or being surprised, like, wow, you really are, and you're actually unreachable to us. The press do not know what to make of us because we don't do politics the way politics are done. We are completely different, and they have no idea what to make of us.
So the usual tactics and tricks don't work against you.
No. And they don't know how to position us. They don't know what we are getting into because they are used to politicians addressing these superficial needs of people and playing the political games that they are used to, and we are way out of that. We don't do any of that. So they don't know how to deal with us. And that's one of the other things I'm very proud of, because the parliamentary press did not have interest in us, or they laughed at us, or they did not know how to position us. So we are not covered in the media as much as other parties. Basically, we're not covered at all. And still, we grew from 2 seats to 5 seats. So without even media coverage, like the other parties would have in the parliamentary press, people find us anyway. So it is doable. Even if you're having no media attention at all, stick to your ideals and people will resonate.
It's awesome, yeah, very, very inspiring, and we need inspiration because it is hard, and it's very sad, isn't it, when you know what's happening. So
yeah,
it's good to see good news.
But I'm very proud of your candidate running for Senate in California. We just made pictures earlier.
By the way, Clifton's also a big meditator. He is so chill. There's nothing that can rock that man. He's just in a beautiful, serene mood every time I see him.
Then he can do anything. So we made some pictures today, and I did an endorsement for Kids and Roberts in California. They have this beautiful banner that said "Vote Vegan." They have these buttons that say "Vote Compassion" or "Vote your consciousness."
Oh, vote for your consciousness.
Yeah. Wow. This is going to be a wonderful campaign, and I wish them all luck. The elections will be November 8th?
Yes.
Okay, let me know if I can do anything else.
I will, thank you. And I was going to ask you actually, because you're going to be having all your meetings with the UN, if there's anything that any of us can do, please let us know.
Okay, good. Well, we're screening Dominion next Monday night. On my Facebook page are the details. We're starting at 7 p.m. at the Benjamin Hotel. Please invite your friends. I want to have the UN officials come over, and obviously when they see the footage, the documentary Dominion is about the reality of the animal agricultural industry and basically all the animals we use in our society. So you all know the reality footage is never pleasant. So if the UN officials are there, they might need the support that we provide people when we do Cubes of Truth, because they're going to be shocked and not knowing what to do. So I realize for vegan activists it's very hard to look at the footage. I found it was a very hard documentary to watch for me as well. But I think if we can summon the strength, it is important that we do so we can help others and spread the word. So if you're willing to show up or spread the word, invite your friends, it would be very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been incredible and very uplifting and informative and inspiring.
Good luck to you. Thank you.